However, 300 milligrams of DIM, again, get on Amazon for like 20 bucks, shows a favorable increase of over 100. We are recording. Perfect. Hi everybody, I'm Damon. Really quick, before we start this video, I'm going to go ahead and use this for us to save us all some time.
Diindolylmethane.
I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'm going to be very upfront about that. I just call it DIM. Anyway, we're going to talk today about DIM because I'm seeing this pop up a lot, like a lot more frequently than I did a couple years ago. And I think it's in part due to TikTok really blowing this up as a new, like, legal SERM or AI. A lot of people are calling it AI. It is not an AI. But essentially, DIM will take the good and bad estrogens and put them in a more favorable balance for you. So if you are someone who is highly converting your testosterone into estrogen, you have high estrogen, this may be of something of use to you potentially. Personally, I take DIM alongside indole-3-carbon, alongside calcium D-glucuronate, anytime that I'm not running a very high dose of masteron with proviron with my testosterone. And typically, if I'm just running anything under like 200 mg of testy, I will just take DIM and indole-3-carbon, and it puts me in a relatively good state. Now, how does this work? They are very kind enough to give us a little chart here. So we have our 17-beta estrone, and we can see that it is converted into 2-hydroxyestrone and then 2-methoxyestrone. And then from here, we can also see that it is also converted into 16-alpha-hydroxyestrone and then estriol. Now, we have 17-beta estrone, which is converted to, and back and forward, conversely converted into 17-beta estradiol. Estrone is typically the weakest form of estrogen, and it produces the least estrogen-like effects. So essentially, you want to have as much of this to prevent the proliferation of things like gynecomastia and thyroid proliferative diseases. This is what this entire section is about. So what they did was they took women who had no history of breast cancer. They weren't taking things like statins. They weren't taking tamoxifen, which is an actual pharmaceutical SERM. They weren't taking things like oral contraceptives, and they weren't given exogenous forms of estrogen, and they didn't have liver disease because DIM, oddly enough, has some very strong formations and reactions inside of the liver, which I think I found a few articles here where they talk about it. So here we see that the urinary excretion of DIM was noted in patients. So before taking DIM, they had practically none. Patient 3 is an outlier for sure, so is patient 7, but they excreted a lot of their DIM through urine. But their free circulating levels of DIM in their body after the supplementation is to be noted. So they had practically none, except for patient 7, who had very little. And then post-supplementation, they had a marked increase. So here is their good quote-unquote estrogen. So patient 3 is of note because they had actually very higher levels before DIM supplementation. And yeah, they have actually very high levels of quote-unquote bad estrogen as well before DIM supplementation. So I'm assuming that they've just kind of leveled out as a result of their introduction of DIM. But we can see here that pre-DIM, they had relatively low levels of good estrogen, and afterwards they had a marked increase in their urinary output. So why would this be significant if they're getting rid of it? It's to show that they have such a high free circulating amount that it's being excreted through their urine otherwise. It's not like it's clearing out all of their good and leaving all of the bad. It's rather that there's just so much of both metabolite that it shows up in their urine as a result. So here we can see the concentration of DIM in the thyroid tissue of these patients. So we can see that this has a marked impact, not just in the body and blood, but that it also does saturate thyroid tissue. Here they talk about DIM, and if you didn't know, DIM comes from cruciferous vegetables. It's kind of just boring to go through that, but essentially what happens is DIM is a metabolite from eating cruciferous vegetables like broccoli or cauliflower, and then from there you get indole-3-carbon. Indole-3-carbon is the less stable version, so they've refined it, and then they've given us one of the metabolites, which has the most selective propensity for it. Essentially, you could do indole-3-carbon, but you can take both. I take both. I take indole-3-carbon as well as DIM myself. And it's relatively cheap, by the way, so if you want to get it, you can get it on Amazon. I think there's one that's like a 90-day supply for under 20 bucks, and then there's one with bioperine that's even cheaper, and I think it costs you like less than a quarter a day for like a 90-day supply, but This study here, before I get into the next one, it showed that even with only 150 milligrams of DIM every single day, the ratio of good to bad estrogen had actually switched over 75%. So you have a 76% increase in the favorable ratio that would prevent things like thyroid proliferative diseases. However, 300 milligrams of DIM, which you can again get on Amazon for like $20, shows a favorable increase of over 170%. Here we can just see that DIM has a great response, and bioresponse DIM isn't DIM plus bioperine, it's just DIM that has been complexed, and over time they have really refined it. Let me see if I can actually pull this up on Google for us really quick. They don't have it in here, so I'm not going to bother with that, but essentially it's just DIM with things like silica, rice flour, and a bunch of other junk. So here we see another one where it has the placebo-controlled trial of DIM for breast cancer biomarker modulations in patients taking tamoxifen, which is a SERM, and they noted that there could be some interactions between the two of them. Oh wait, okay, this one actually has bioresponse DIM. Yeah, so this is what is approved as an agent to be used in estrogen modulation. So here we see the bioresponse DIM is just a proprietary complex. It's 150 milligrams as vitamin E alongside phosphatidylcholine, and there's actually a picture, I'm pretty sure, that shows it a lot better. Yeah, so it's D-alpha tocalciferol succinate as that brand name, and then they have microencapsulation for proven absorption. It's just a lot of stuff to make sure you're actually getting in a sufficient amount of DIM. So it's 300 milligram capsule, but you get 150 milligrams guaranteed of DIM. So that's essentially all that it is. It is something that may in fact be potentially beneficial. And there's just one more article I found because it is on the Integrative Cancer Research website that I got through academia.com. And it talks about DIM and its derivatives inducing apoptosis in pancreatic cell cancers through endoplasmic reticular stress. And essentially what that big word vomit means is that DIM and its derivatives, or like any metabolite of DIM, could potentially create cell death for pancreatic cell cancers. And they have a bunch of really neat charts here. They have a bunch of stuff on how they did it, and they just show its benefits for essentially killing off cancers in pancreatic cell. And they have a big discussion. Here's a neat little chart where they talk about cell death, so that might be of interest to you. So I'm going to go ahead and leave every single one of these in the video description as well. And then here's just more things about its chemoprotective effects and its prevention of other cell cancer formation. So this is how it does it, how it puts things through like endoplasmic reticulum stress, how it has cell cycle arrest, how it promotes apoptosis, and practically every single one of these, and what it upregulates or downregulates, like nuclear factor, kappa B. However, I am not interested. I mean, currently I am of good health as of my last checkup, thankfully. But I use it for my estrogen modulation because obviously when you have an exogenous form of testosterone, that is more than my body would naturally produce, so I'm going to have an elevated level of estrogen, and I like to keep my estrogen relatively high. Estrogen is incredibly protective. I don't like to use many aromatase inhibitors. I think I take 12.5 milligrams of aromasin every 6 to 8 weeks, or I will take one, and it's not the best practice, I will take one if I'm highly emotional for more than a few days, but typically the Masteron in my utility does provide it enough sort of weak AI. It's not really weak AI, it's just the binding to the other receptors that lets me leverage less in terms of like not needing a Nolvadex to completely crush my estrogen and potentially hurt my bone density and other things like my lipids. So that's why I like this personally. If you guys have any preferred reason that you use it, if you haven't used it, if you have any questions about it, feel free to leave a comment below. Feel free to go through the video description and dig out these studies, draw out your own conclusions, and let me know what you guys think. If there's anything else that you want to riff on and you don't feel like leaving a comment, you are more than welcome to send me a DM on Instagram. My Instagram is just @DamonIsVegan. It's all one word. You can say, hey, I saw your video on topic XYZ, had a couple questions for you, or I wanted to sit down and have a chit chat about the conversation. Whenever you get some time, I would be more than happy to talk to you guys. But that is just about it. I hope that everyone has had a great start to the month so far. We're getting closer to Christmas, and it has yet to snow, which I'm kind of bummed about. I don't like I don't like how cold it gets. I don't like driving in the snow. I don't like ice, but I absolutely love how gorgeous it looks outside when you just see a bunch of trees littered with just a bunch of white. It is gorgeous to me. But until next time, toodles.